Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Michelle Silverman Bedell from Silverson's Realty,
Good morning, everyone. Leslie Jones. I'm an attorney in the area in Scarsdale.
real estate attorney. And we'd like to speak today about the foreign buyer and working with the foreign buyer and investor. Unfortunately, Maria Esposito couldn't make it today, but she hopes to see everyone next Friday. So I think working with the foreign buyer, you have to really recognize, first of all, where are they coming from. So most of the people are coming from, although it's been reduced since last year, in the last few years, most of them are coming from China, Canada, Mexico, India, Colombia, and several European countries, such as the UK, Germany, and also including Israel, and a couple of other countries in Europe. So it's a very strong market in terms of why they want to come. I mean, it's a safe haven here. They really feel that they can get a better price here than they can buy real estate abroad. So they're very comfortable buying in the United States. Most of them are moving to Florida, is a big destination for them, California. A lot of them like the coastal areas, and they really like warmer climates, especially if they're coming from Germany or the UK. And they're also settling in a lot of suburban areas, as well as the metropolitan areas such as LA, San Francisco, including New York, because they really like it as a financial hub and as a cultural hub.
Yes, definitely seeing a lot of, I definitely see a lot of foreign investors come to New York City, or a lot of people who are relocating, their job changes, and they come over here temporarily for a few years to do some sort of project or, so it's a relocation type of situation where they're set up and their company will help them move.
Right. I think also a lot of them are buying. Most people, when you look at the statistics, most of the buyers, especially the Chinese, are preferring to buy single-family homes in suburban communities because their primary, besides coming here because they want to be in the U.S. and invest here, but school systems are very important to them. So, amongst other reasons, but they really prefer a more quiet lifestyle and a suburban community. It's interesting that Canadians often buy a second home, and they're looking for warmer climates coming from Canada, and they'll typically buy condominiums. So it's a much easier purchase for them as opposed to buying a single family home. I think it's also important to recognize when working with the foreign buyer that many of them are coming here and it's very different purchasing here, right? They're not used to co-ops versus condominiums. We have to really explain the difference because if they want to come here and invest, you typically cannot rent a co-op. They have all sorts of restrictions on it. You have to often own it. Sometimes you can't even rent at all. You have to own it sometimes 2 years or not at all, and that it makes it very difficult for a foreign investor to buy a cooperative apartment, especially if they're looking in the suburbs or in Manhattan. I think also you have to explain to them differences in tax structures. Many of them do not understand that each community has a different tax base or different assessment, and in some communities, when you buy, taxes change.
Yes, definitely. But the biggest thing to know with foreign investors is you want to make sure they have some sort of tax ID number so that transfer documents can be completed. And then it's really not so much of an issue when they're coming to the U.S. as long as they have a tax ID number. It's when they exit or leave the U.S. There's implications where you have to file tax forms, which is called a FERPTA, and basically there's a withholding of 15% that has to be withheld, and you need an accountant usually to help you make sure that they're set up with a good accountant, and there is a withholding, and if it's done incorrectly, it becomes a lien on the buyer.
Oh, wow.
So you want to make sure this is completely handled, and everything is documented, and the funds are sent into the IRS timely, and making sure that check was cashed and that everything's done correctly, because the buyer can suffer the consequences. Months later, they can get a notification, and they're basically on the hook. So you really need to have attorneys who understand the process and accountants who understand the process, and that it gets done timely, because it can be disturbing for all parties and a little stressful.
Right, really. I think also that a lot of buyers who come here, in their own country, it's very different purchasing real estate. So many clients, I'm working with somebody now who's coming from abroad, he's with the UN, and I had to explain, even buying a co-op, it's important to do an inspection and an apartment. And it's very foreign to them. Many countries, they buy it as is, they do not inspect, they sign a contract, and they close. And it's very important for them to also understand the concept of transfer tax when they're selling it, often, or buying it. Often many foreign investors, if they're buying in Manhattan, if they're buying new construction, the responsibility on the transfer tax is on them, correct, as opposed to the seller.
In most cases, I mean, that's sometimes negotiated, but usually it is the case.
Right, so I think you really have to understand the local customs when you're buying real estate in the U.S. or anywhere in the world, basically. I think also when you're working with the foreign buyer, it's very important to understand the cultural differences, right? If you're dealing with somebody who's abroad, respect their time differences, respect their local customs, and their language, right? Often I only speak English, and I speak a little of Hebrew, and I speak a little of Spanish. But other than that, I really may need an interpreter, or if people really speak the language, you have to respect the local. Even the syntax and the way they speak is very different in many cases. We also have to understand that when you're meeting somebody, should be respectful of how they dress and local customs of how you dress. So I think it's very important to understand that. Also, when I'm meeting with a foreign buyer, many buyers like to meet for coffee or a meal. They're used to doing business over dinner or lunch, or definitely over coffee. So it's important to understand the way they do business and the cultural differences that are involved.
Definitely. I definitely have had experiences where there's certain things that, where family has to come to the house first to kind of take a look at the house. There's certain dates maybe that they can and can't sign. Different cultures require someone to tell them what's the appropriate date that they can close based on some calendar that possibly you don't understand. But respect it, and I always do. And there's certain auspicious dates where people can sign, and
Superstition.
You just accept it and try to explain it to your buyer or seller as well. So that is definitely a very interesting fact that I sort of, from doing this for many years, have realized that you just have to be open to everything.
Right. The same here. When I'm working with a client, very often they'll look at the direction of the position of the house. A lot of people will not buy it if it's coming at an intersection, or they want to know if it faces east or south, or north or west. They very often stand with the compass in the house. You have to respect that, as well as the address, the actual number of the house is very important to certain cultures. So as you can see, the discussion really can go on and on and on about cultural differences, and maybe next week we can continue the discussion, and Maria could speak about financing with the foreign buyer. So if you have any questions, please give us a call or email or send us a text.
Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
You too. Have a great one. Be well.